Let's have a look at the @bean annotation. So the @bean annotation allows us to instantiate a class where we can have some extra configuration and setup steps before the class is initialized. So to demonstrate this, let's first create a new class in here, and we're going to call this as customer and then config. So we can say config or configuration and then enter. Now in here, so I'm going to have a method that will return the command line runner. So this is a Spring specific class, and basically this class, so here we have to return this lambda right here, and in here what we're going to do is just end this with semicolon. So we often use this class right here when we want to kind of do some setup when the application starts, and we can inject a few services or classes that we have. We can use dependency injection in here, and then for example maybe you want to add something to the database as soon as the application starts. But for us to tell Spring that this has to be initialized, we can use the @ and then the bean, which means that this now is instantiated for us, and any code that we have inside here is executed. So here I'm going to say south, and I'm going to print. So let me just say command line runner. Hooray. Now the final thing that we have to do is to annotate this class as well with @ and then configuration. So now everything is wired up, and if we restart the application, there we go, the application started successfully, and you can see that we have command line runner and then hooray. So if I remove this annotation, so if I remove @bean and then refresh, you can see that nothing happens. So this is one of the reasons why we use the @bean annotation. But let me give you a more concrete example here. So inside we have two repositories. So we have the customer repository and we have the fake repository. And then inside of the service, so inside of the customer service, in here, this actually gets the primary, right? It gets the primary, which is the customer repository. But if we want to switch between those two implementations, you saw that we can use @ and then qualifier, and then here I can say fake, right? So this now picks up the fake repository. Now it would be nice if I could actually do this through some kind of configuration, right? And have full control of how we instantiate the correct implementation. This is when @bean also helps us. So if I open up the customer configuration in here, what we're going to do is the following. We're going to say that we want to return. So this will be customer and then repo. And then I'm going to say customer repo. And what we want to do is to have, so here, we want to have a flexible way of us telling whether to instantiate the fake repository or the real one, which will connect to a real database. So for that, what we're going to do here is actually use some configuration. You haven't learned about application.properties and configuration, but for now, I'm going to explain this, and then we're going to further explore this in the later chapters. So here, let's go ahead and say Boolean. So this will be a Boolean, and then I'm going to say use and then fake customer and then repo. So this is a value that we can basically get from the configuration file, right? So to do that, we're going to say @ and then value, and then the value will come from, so make sure that you have $sign and then these curly brackets. And then here I'm going to say app dot, and then I'm going to take this name. So this will be the exact same name, paste that in. So if this is not provided, I'm going to say column and then false. So this will be the default value. Now, what this allows me to do is the following. So if I expand this, I can say return and then use fake repo. So if this is the case, I'm going to return new and then fake, or actually customer fake repository. Otherwise, I'm going to return new and then customer and then repository. So you can see how this is coming together. And in fact, let me just say salt. And then inside, I'm going to have a string, paste the name, and then I'm going to say equals to, and then plus a fake repository. Now I can go ahead and annotate this class with, or actually this method with add and then bean. There we go. And now we don't have to use the qualifier in here anymore, because this, depending on the configuration, creates either the fake customer repository or the real one. And finally, remember, inside of the customer repository, we can remove the primary from here because everything is done through the configuration now. And let me just go back to this class. If I start the application now, there we go. You see that use fake customer repo equals to false, and then command line runner hooray. So what we are using is the repository that connects to the real database. So here, if I refresh, you can see that we are getting this JSON, which we haven't implemented yet against a real database, but you can see the gist. Now, if you want to switch to a fake database in here, what we need to do is as follows. So there are many ways, but for now, let's just open up the configuration. So the application configuration, so edit. And then in here, we can pass program arguments. I'm going to say dot dot and then app dot and then use fake customer repo equals to and then true. And let's apply this. And basically this right here has to match this name right here, but we did override it to true. Now, if I start the application again, so actually restart, we should see use fake customer repo equals to true. And in here, if I refresh, you can see that now we've switched things by having the repository been configured before it's been initialized. And this is the benefit of using the bean annotation right here. So there you have it. We haven't covered properties, and this we will cover later down in this course, but I just wanted to teach you about the bean annotation. So this is when you want to initialize a class, and whether you want to have some setup or configure before initialization, this is how you do it. And one thing which I almost forgot is that in here, inside of the fake repository, we can get rid of this annotation because now we are instantiating this class, and the same with customer and in repository. So we can remove these two annotations because otherwise we'll have duplication going on. Remove that, and there we go. So if I start the application, so once more, just to make sure that things are working, there we go, use fake customer repo. And if I refresh, this still works. And if I switch back to false, so in here, so this will be false, even though we have a default. Restart. You see false in here, and reload. And now you can see that we are getting a different implementation. If you have any questions on this, go ahead and drop me a message. Otherwise, let's move on.